AP. You got to believe in divine providence and in
What do you want from me? I already believe, man.
And then God, I don't know, maybe having a sense of humor or something. Because you remember like 2 years ago when The Obsession and Dawa was getting on everyone's big podcast? We talked about it like 500 times. Like all the Muslims were, Joe Rogan, you have to get Mohammed Hijab on there. Oh, yeah. And it worked. It worked a few times. It worked with Jordan Peterson and Michaela Peterson and a couple of others. But they had this idea, if we just get on everyone's big podcast, then we can spread the Dawa script to a new audience who's ignorant, because people who are familiar with the Dawa script, it doesn't work anymore. These arguments only work if you're talking to people who have no clue what's going on. So they wanted to get on everyone's big podcast to do this. And now, 2 years later, after they launched that plan, they can't get on anyone's podcast because no one can stand them. And then we got Wes Huff going on all these huge podcasts, breaking it down.
You're right. That's very funny, man.
Isn't that funny?
Very funny. They were trying very, very hard. Like, yes, look what Mohammed Hijab did. He went on Jordan Peterson and humiliated him. Now we have to get on more podcasts. Of course, if you act like that, nobody will want to invite you back. So, but now you have Wes Huff actually going there instead of these idiots rising from nothing to going on all the big podcasts that they were trying to go on. It's funny. It's
absolutely hilarious because they were trying, as we pointed out, they were trying everything they could, like bombarding people with, get him on your podcast, we will love you forever if you get him on your podcast. They were doing that. They were trying their hardest to get, Hijab, someone like Hijab on Joe Rogan and so on. Wes wasn't even trying. He just was asked at the last second, will you debate this Billy Carson guy? He's like, okay. And so last second, I think he said he had like 24 hours notice or under 24 hours notice or something like that for that debate. Completely crushed the guy so bad. I had no idea who Billy Carson was, but apparently all these other people did know who Billy Carson was, and they were all worried about his weird crystals and aliens and stuff. And anyway, Wes wasn't even trying. He got asked to do a debate, and all of a sudden skyrocketed to every podcast on the planet that has trillions of followers. Isn't it cool the way it turned out? Because this is kind of perfect timing, man. This is kind of perfect timing. We got the new atheism, which has been fizzling out. Then we've got the avalanche of apostasy. We've got Dawa that's been fizzling out. And so, awesome time to share something different. And it's cool. 2025, man. 2025 is cool.
That's a glaring issue with the Islamic Dawa is that it doesn't add up.
This argument, we tend to give simple versions of the argument, but this can go extremely deep because there are dozens of Quran verses that are affirming the inspiration, preservation, and authority of the previous scriptures in some fashion. There's none when you read it there's not one where you read it in context and actually says our scriptures have been corrupted. And so it's an amazing situation where you've got at least dozens and dozens of Quran verses saying one thing and Muslims believing the opposite when there's not one verse that supports what they're saying. And it's just this weird situation, but it's really awesome that people are finding out about it and that you helped popularize it a bunch because now everyone's talking about it.
The objections to it are very, very weak, especially with the textual stuff. We know exactly what the Torah and the Gospel looked like in the 7th century. We have multiple examples of both that were floating around, especially in like the Arabian, not necessarily in the Arabian Peninsula, but in places like Syria and Jordan and Israel, what were otherwise Jewish and Muslim countries, Jewish and Christian countries before they became Muslim countries after the Islamic expansion. So there's no confusion as to what that looked like in the 7th century. So if we're going to take it seriously and take the Quran at its word and say if the Torah and the Gospel have any application in their day to the people in that time frame, what they would have thought of is exactly what we can point to, and doesn't look any different than what we have today. So if it doesn't look any different from what we have today, then why would we think that there was any type of massive corruption? So like I keep saying, the author of the Quran simply had no idea what the Torah and the Gospel were. And that's a problem for what they adhere to, because both of you guys know, the arguments for corruption start to pop up a lot later when translations of the Torah and the Gospel get into Muslims' hands and they're like, hold on, this is a problem for us. So the Islamic dilemma is an issue.